It's time for Reason.
They have really abused their power, saying, well, we're not going to tell you exactly how much money. They used to. This is how much money we need to see for it to be, quote-unquote, suitable, and that way you're constitutionally compliant. Nowadays, they say, yeah, you know what? We made a mistake back then. We're not allowed to tell you exactly how much because you do have the power of the purse, but only to some degree because we still get to tell you whether it's constitutional or not. So I can't tell you how much, but you need more money.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-America Network. It is a great honor to have you along today on a Thursday. It's the pre-Friday celebration. It's the day before the weekend. It is the Friday Eve, whatever you want to call it. It's a great day. Let's make it a good one, shall we? 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, shoot me a message. I got to say really quickly here, I think I'm being censored. I think the government is on to me, which you would think. I mean, come on, with the CIA, with Mike Pompeo. I mean, he's from Kansas here. He's a good friend of the show. Come on. No, I tried to post the Facebook Live feed going on, and the Facebook Live is working. It is kind of going, but when I posted it, usually I'm able to share it onto all the pages, onto KIUL's page, onto KGYN's page, onto my Voice of Reason page. I'm able to usually share it all over the place. There's no options for that, and I don't know why. So I think I may have to restart the Facebook Live feed, but I don't know what's going on here. It doesn't give you any of the options to be able to like it or comment on it or share it or anything. It's just, here's the video. So I don't know how to get it to the other pages. And usually a lot of our listenership and viewership onto the Facebook Live feed is done by being able to see it in numerous different places and wherever you may be listening or wherever your flavor is with the show that you follow, then you're able to actually follow it on there. So I don't know why the Facebook Live feed's not able to be shared. So I apologize for that for a second. We're going to try and figure something out. I don't know. I may have to call up some behind-the-scenes black shadow government and say, please let me share my Facebook Live feed, because we are a very controversial show, apparently. But nonetheless, you can still shoot me a message on Facebook, on social media, on the Facebook page, on the Twitter, at Hoosier Reason. The Facebook Live feed is there on KQAM's page at least, but it's not really anywhere else right now. 316-721-8255. I got a lot to get to today. There's a lot of misinformation floating around today, and I want to address it as yesterday, and we're going to play at the bottom of the hour. Yesterday, we spoke with Catherine Mortensen. She's the national liaison for the NRA, and we're talking about national reciprocity. Now, Congressman Ron Estes, Congressman Lynn Jenkins from here in the state of Kansas, both co-sponsored this reciprocity bill. This is big news. This is a very good thing. This is allowing you to be able to carry your firearm across state lines, and they have to, even if they have gun bans, they have to respect your right to carry, because you have constitutional carry in your states, like Kansas. You have a concealed carry permit, and if you travel across state lines and you end up using your gun, or someone sees your gun and they try to turn you in, unlike some of the other cases that we've heard over the last few years, you're not going to get in trouble, because that state now has to recognize your concealed carry or your constitutional carry. This destroys gun-free zones, which they weren't really gun-free in the first place, because if bad guys wanted to use them, obviously, they could walk in there right past the sticker, right past the sign, and do whatever the heck they wanted to do, and no one else would be able to defend themselves. This shatters that mentality, because they have to respect your right to carry a firearm. This is very big news. And for the whole Mid-America region, no matter where you're listening, in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, it doesn't matter, this is good, because we like our guns, right? We like our Second Amendment. So we need to be on support of this. Now, the House did pass it yesterday, which we need to be very happy about. They passed it 231 to 198. Democrats voting for this bill. This is very good news. This is very big news. Now, so there's a catch, allegedly. And the NRA obviously is support of this. They actually are the ones that created most of this bill. The Gun Owners of America, the GOA, they are not in support of this bill because of what they call the Fix-NICS amendment that's attached to it, the bill that's attached to the larger bill here. And they don't like it. And there's a lot of gun activists and a lot of quote-unquote libertarians who do not want to support this. So we'll talk about what the Fix-NICS bill actually is. We'll break it down for you. I'm still in support of this bill. We need to call our senators. It's going to be a very tight race. It's going to be a very tight vote. And they want to do this again before the end of the year. This is going to be another one, just like tax reform, where Breitbart.com, A.W.R. Hawkins, who is a gun rights activist, he's on Armed American Radio all the time. He is a gun legal expert. He's also a contributor to Breitbart.com. He wrote a piece and said that this reciprocity bill, just imagine how important this is. You being allowed to carry your firearm anywhere you go in the nation, and whether you have to use it or you don't have to use it, the state that you're traveling to must recognize your right to carry that firearm, because as long as you comply with your home state with their regulations, whether it's constitutional carry or a carry permit or whatever it is, as long as you comply with that, then you can be valid to carry that anywhere else in the rest of the country. This is what he called in Breitbart the largest piece of gun legislation since the Second Amendment was crafted. This is major. But there are some that's trying to block it because of the Fix-NICS bill attached to it. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. We also are going to be talking with Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District here in the Wichita area tomorrow at 7:30, as he did vote for it. He co-sponsored it, and that was one of the first things that he did actually when he got into office earlier this spring. So we'll talk to him about the details of the bill. We'll get some details from his perspective on the Fix-NICS side of that bill and get your take. But at the bottom of the hour, we will play the interview that we had with Catherine Mortensen with the NRA and get your thoughts on there as well. So there's a lot to get to there. I need to announce, though, that there was some really, really big news for tomorrow. Tomorrow's show is probably going to be one of the biggest shows that we've had yet. And I know some of the Western stations, KIUL, KYUL, KGYN, I know that you guys are not going to be able to hear all of it right away. I will be able to play excerpts of it for Monday next week before I take off for my vacation. But if you get a chance to listen online, on the TuneIn, on the Facebook Live, on whatever you do, if you get an opportunity to do so, you must do so. Of course, the podcast as well, which I never plug the podcast, and I don't know why. I probably should, because my numbers really aren't that big or very high on there. But it is important if you want to listen to it. VOR, as in Voice of Reason, VOR.podbean, like a bean, podbean.com. VOR.podbean.com. You can find there. And actually, if you're on YouTube, iTunes, you can actually go and search for the Voice of Reason. You can subscribe to it. So that way, as soon as I upload a show, then it automatically downloads onto your iTunes. You do have that option as well. But the reason I plug tomorrow's show, and I'm really excited about it, is that, first off, it's chock full of guests, which I usually don't like to do on Fridays for a free-for-all because I like to open up the phones to you. But in the 7 o'clock hour, we will be having President Donald Trump's two top advisors, Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie, on the show at the same time as they talk about their new book that they co-wrote together, Let Trump Be Trump, talking about the campaign in 2016 and what they went through as a campaign. They were Corey Lewandowski was the campaign manager, the head campaign manager for President Trump. David Bossie being the deputy campaign manager for the Trump administration, and now they're his personal advisors in the White House. Kind of a big deal. So we're going to have them on the show at 7 o'clock tomorrow. At 7:30, we'll have Congressman Ron Estes talking about the National Reciprocity bill, the Fix-NICS bill, and how that goes about and some of the details and how he co-sponsored that and what all is entailed with it. In the 8 o'clock hour tomorrow, I know, again, the western part of the stations, the western states, they're not going to be able to hear this unless you listen live or you listen to the podcast afterwards. But Senator Jim DeMint, kind of a big deal. Jim DeMint, who was a former senator, was the head of the Heritage Foundation. Now he's leading some other think tanks in Washington, D.C. He's focusing on the Convention of the States movement. He's going to be in studio with me for the entire 8 o'clock hour as he's speaking at the Wichita Pachyderm Club tomorrow, and you're more than welcome to go to that as well. It's going to be a huge show. I am so excited about tomorrow that I'm giddy. I'm really excited about this one, just to be able to talk to all these great individuals, to be able to talk. I mean, this is good. This is like a national show right here in our home Mid-America region. This is really cool. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. When we come back from the break, I do want to touch on briefly, it happened on Monday. I have not had a chance to talk about it much just because we've been so busy. But on Monday, as you know, in the state of Kansas, some of our legislators went up to Topeka and had a nice little meeting on what they're going to start discussing with education. and the education funding in the state as we start figuring out what to do to comply or not comply with the Kansas Supreme Court. So they came up with somewhat of an idea on the momentum they're going to have or lack thereof, some of the comments that are made from some of these legislators who want to either comply or not comply, and what the battle is going to look like. I think the battle lines have been drawn for the Republicans, Democrats, moderate Democrats. I don't know how you break this one down quite yet, but they are deciding whether we fund or whether we stop the abuse of the Supreme Court and how to move forward from this, because we can no longer allow litigation to happen for 10 years straight. The Montoya case started in 2007, for crying out loud. 10 years of litigation for education funding. They've claimed that we've cut spending on education year over year. Not the case. We've actually increased it 1% to 2% every single year. I know I rail on that all the time, but it's important for you to understand. It's extremely important for you to know. That way, when someone comes to you when you're sitting at the restaurant or the bar or across the dinner table from your family, oh, I can't believe them. They've been cutting spending on education. It's been completely absurd. We need more money in the classroom because the teachers aren't getting paid properly. And I agree that the teachers aren't being paid properly, but we have not cut spending. You should probably look elsewhere on where the money's actually going. And it's not because of legislators. It's because of bureaucrats. It's because of corruptness. It's because of agencies like the KNEA and the teachers unions and everything of that sort that have actually taken the money, and it doesn't even get to the actual classroom. So we'll talk about that a little bit, their comments, what to expect in the legislative session 2018. That plus your thoughts on the reciprocity bill, the Fix-NICS bill, all of that and more. A big show coming up for you today. Stay tuned. This is The Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-America Network. It's working, baby. It's working. It was really weird. I wasn't able to see any of the options at all anywhere, and I just don't know why. One person likes it. Thanks, Mrs. Voice of Reason. And there it is. Poof, it's all back up. I'm going to share it onto the KGYM page, share it onto the KIUL page. I'm not sure what was going on with it. They're trying to censor me, man. That's what they're trying to do. They don't like me. That's okay. I don't like myself either sometimes. What do you do? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, I'd love to hear from you today. Shoot me a message on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, on the Facebook Live feed. Coming up on the show today, and we will play the interview coming up in the first hour tomorrow. Wink Hartman, candidate for governor, going to be joining us in the 8 o'clock hour at 8 o'clock. And then at 8:30, Lieutenant Governor Jeff Coyler is going to be stopping by over the phone, not in studio, but talking about the discussion about aviation here in the Wichita area. May not play that interview tomorrow. We'll see how that one goes, but that's kind of the lineup for today. Kansas has been in litigation over finance since 2010 on the ongoing Gannon lawsuit. Montoya started in 2007. The Kansas Supreme Court again ruled K-12 funding unconstitutional in October and gave the state until April to come up with a solution and file a new brief in the case. Putting more funds into schools would be a challenge for legislators. This is according, by the way, to the Topeka Capital Journal. Yes, it would be very challenging. What are you going to do about that? What are you going to do? You just going to let us continue to raise taxes? I'm sure that's what you would like. Putting more funds into schools would be a challenge for legislators who overrode a veto from Governor Brownback this spring to increase taxes, in part to put another $195 million and $292 million into schools over the next 2 years. But it's just not enough. We actually continue to open up doors of schools over the last how many years, and that's still just not enough. Even with this year's tax increase, the state will face budget shortfalls 2 years from now if it fully funds its public pension system and stops transferring money from highway budgets, which it's done in recent years. You know what they're trying to get at here, which I find quite ironic? Exactly what they're trying to get away with here is they're still trying to find a way to blame Governor Sam Brownback. This is going to be the Barack Obama coming to, hopefully, dear God, we don't get another Democrat like Barack Obama coming in as the governor here in Kansas. But let's just say this is what they're trying to do. It's on the waning end of Governor Brownback's term. He's about ready to leave and head up to the administration for President Trump. He's about ready to leave the state of Kansas. Everybody hates him, apparently. Nobody likes him. And this is their way of doing what they did to President George W. Bush. It's his fault. He ruined everything. It's going to take years to recover. And if we don't see the recovery right off the bat and it takes 2 terms or another campaign or another individual 8 years down the road, then that's when we'll finally start to come back from the Brownback era. As long as we're borrowing money, as long as we're still taking money from the highways, which how dare we do so because our highways are crumbling, even though we're number 3 for the best highways in the country. But as long as our highways are crumbling, then it's all Governor Brownback's fault. As long as we have another budget shortfall 2 years from now, then it's going to be Governor Brownback's fault. Well, how is it his fault? Well, because he stole all the money of all reserves. He took away all the cash flow from the state, and we're trying to build that up. And you evil, terrible conservative Republicans just don't like your taxes going up. And even though they may not be at the rates they were before, you don't like your tax rates going up. So therefore, you're the problem. You know this is going to be Governor Brownback's name is not going to leave the mainstream media for years because they will always find a way to bring it back to him how he cut taxes, he cut revenue, he had to borrow money from other departments and other agencies, he had to borrow from pension plans, he had to borrow from highways, he had to do this, and we're still trying to recover from it. You know it's not going to go away for a long, long time. And I feel bad for Lieutenant Governor Coyler when he does step in and take over the governorship because they're going to blame him just as much. You were part of the administration, and now you try to hold up his administration. How dare that you hold up conservatism? It's the perennial dilemma of state government. According to one of these state legislators, Don Heineman, House Majority Leader from Dighton, a Republican, it's a perennial dilemma of state government. You're always dealing with limited resources. Is that a bad thing? I'm wondering to see if that's a bad thing because as far as I'm aware, that's the challenge of being a government official. You're not supposed to have unlimited resources for the government to say, I'm going to spend and do whatever I want to. It's just to say, here's the resources that I have. What can I do with the resources given to me? I should be grateful for the resources that the citizens have given to me, and then I'm going to find whatever projects I can do with that. Not, yeah, we're dealing with limited resources here. It's a very difficult thing. We just can't continue to, it's very difficult. Oh, man, I just don't know what to do. Representative Ed Trimmer, Democrat from Winfield, said he'd like to see more money added to the schools this year so legislators could have based its tax increase on what it needed. They should have just raised funding up to what it actually needed from the get-go, not have to deal with this, and then we could have increased tax rates up to that to be able to compensate for it. Again, the same mentality. Republican and a Democrat, the same thought process. One say, yeah, we don't have limited resources. This is really frustrating. We don't know what to do. The other one saying, yeah, we should have just raised spending up to the level we needed to and then raise taxes to be able to compensate for that. Again, needing the resources and then getting to the level to where they just have to find those resources and then raise your taxes to compensate for the need of that resource. Not caring about you, but as long as they're happy at the state level, then they're content because they are more important than you, that little peon that goes to work every day, pays your taxes, and contributes to the system. Bottom of the hour news coming up.
Andy doesn't tolerate name-calling.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
But if you want to try, call the show at 316-721-8255 right now. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
There's mischief and mayhem and songs to be sung. There's bells and there's holly, the kids are gung-ho. True love finds a kiss beneath fresh mistletoe. Some families are messed up while others are fine. If you think yours is crazy, well, you should see mine.
Welcome into the Voice of Reason. A little Irish Christmas music for you there. What do you say about that? Ha! 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program here. All right, I want to play the interview. Let's shift gears just a little bit here. I want to play the interview that we had with Catherine Mortensen, the national media liaison for the NRA, talking about national reciprocity and the bill that they were voting on. We talked to her yesterday before they had voted it on the House. They ended up passing it in the House. It's going to the Senate now. We'll see whether it goes or not. And again, some interesting discussion has come up about the bill on whether it's actually good or not, whether there's some sneakiness behind the scenes. It's really not. And we'll explain why in just a little bit here. But this is what Catherine Mortensen, head of the media liaison for the NRA, had to say yesterday about the reciprocity bill. She's the media liaison for the NRA at the national level in Washington, D.C. Catherine Mortensen's on the line with us. Catherine, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great, and thank you, Andy. You've said it all. I really don't know more what I can say. You could be the spokesperson for our group. You nailed it.
No, well,
this is a fantastic piece of legislation.
I am so excited. I am just as giddy about and it hasn't, not surprisingly, it hasn't gotten any media attention. No one even knows it's happening, but I see this as just as much of a victory as doing a major tax reform bill. This is huge for the Second Amendment.
Well, I think what this is the most expansive piece of self-defense legislation that the Congress has ever voted on.
Mm-hmm. How long have you guys been working on this legislation?
Well, concealed carry reciprocity, I would say for several Congresses now. This has been a bill that has been put forward, but we haven't had the opportunity to vote, and we haven't had a pro-Second Amendment Senate, a pro-Second Amendment House, and a pro-Second Amendment president in the White House. So we have all the stars aligned right now. This is the best opportunity we have had ever to pass this concealed carry reciprocity legislation. But I will give you just a little bit of background. This dates back more than 3 decades, where the NRA has been pushing for what we call, as sort of a broad term, the right to carry legislation.
Sure.
Where we have been working at the state level mostly, and also at the federal level, to ensure that law-abiding citizens simply have the right to protect and defend themselves. And this legislation is the culmination of decades' worth of work that the NRA has been doing at the state and federal levels.
I agree with you. The stars have finally aligned for us to be able to do this. It's frustrating that it has taken us this long because we don't have the most Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment individuals in government, whether it was the Democrats, whether it was some Republicans maybe. But now the stars have aligned in order for us to do this, and it's good that we have been floating around like this. Now, from what I understand, about a month or 3 months ago, there were 2 different reciprocity bills that were floating around. One of them, which I believe this one is the one for everybody to be able to be recognized with their concealed carry for their protection. The other one was kind of just for elected officials as they travel around state to state. But this one actually allows the general public with a concealed carry with their Second Amendment to protect themselves, to be able to be acknowledged no matter where they go in the country, correct?
Andy, that's exactly right. So this would recognize if you come from a constitutional carry state, which I believe Kansas is,
yes,
where you don't actually need a government permit or permission, if you are a law-abiding citizen and you are not a prohibited person, obviously, so you're not a felon or adjudicated as mentally deficient, if you're a law-abiding citizen able to carry a firearm, you can travel anywhere in the country with or without a permit and have your rights recognized. Now, if you come from a state that requires a permit to carry concealed, this law would require that every state honor your permit.
Sure.
Does that make sense? So if you come from a state in which you are legally permitted to carry a concealed firearm for self-protection, you would be able to travel anywhere else in the country and have that right recognized. So
as long as you're compliant in the state that you live and reside in, no matter where you go, they respect that. As long as you're compliant there, you're compliant anywhere,
That's exactly right.
I mean, that's a huge movement. Now, I already see the potential litigation building because the progressives despise something like this so much, especially if you're from like Kansas here where we have constitutional carry. We go and visit family in Chicago and they don't like these things very much. What potentially can they come back and try and fight saying, no, you're not allowed to carry your concealed carry, your constitutional carry, your concealed carry permit with your gun when you come to New York City or when you come to Chicago? What are you guys anticipating may be the response to this?
Well, sure. If this is signed into law, which we hope it will be, ideally by the end of this year, we can expect lawsuits for years to come by these gun control advocates, but that's another battle we'll fight down the road. I think right now our focus is simply on getting this first out of the House today. Mm-hmm. And secondly, we'll move it over to the Senate and work with the members there. I mean, the truth is this has broad support. It has bipartisan support. Members have been asking for this kind of legislation for years because more Americans than ever are carrying firearms for personal protection, and we travel. And more of us are running into problems when we get into states like California, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Illinois, and we can have our lives turned upside down. Mm-hmm. They bring the hammer down on individuals, like you pointed out earlier, who come into their states with a valid concealed carry permit from out of state. And that has to stop. And this legislation would put an end to that.
I am so excited. It's again, frustrating that the media has not covered this because it wasn't on my radar to actually be voted on until about a week or so ago. And it's really exciting to hear that it's happening now. Now, the goal, I've heard some say, is that they want it to be signed in both chambers, signed by the president, and be able to be in law before the end of the year. I don't know if that's going to happen. I know that's obviously the best case scenario to allow it to happen. The hardest part is getting it through the Senate. We have a narrow margin of leadership by Republicans in there, the majority. And I'm sure that with how outspoken the Democrats have been in the Senate, they're going to fight this tooth and nail. And it's going to be this massive movement. And you're going to see the media as soon as it gets to the Senate about how the Republicans are allowing guns to run rampant during times of crises and mass shootings and this and that and the other. Do you think that it can get through the Senate with the makeup currently?
I think it's going to be a heavy lift, Andy, no question about it. But yes, it has the support of the American people. That's the bottom line here. The NRA has been successful for many, many years in defending the Second Amendment because we have the support of the American people. The American people now more than ever, they watch what's in the news, they read each day, and they see that violence and these random acts of violence can happen anywhere, anytime, to any one of us. Mm-hmm. And that is why more Americans than ever are carrying firearms for personal protection. And this law is the answer to the problem of these anti-gun states that are making it impossible for law-abiding citizens to defend themselves as they travel.
It's extremely important. I mean, your security does not end just because you leave the state and you're taking your family to Disney World on vacation and you're from Kansas or you're from somewhere else. Your security and your defense does not end when you cross that line, that arbitrary line there. So you're right. I think it's absurd that we have the restrictions we do right now, and this is going to be a great venture here. I know a lot of the House members have signed on to this as co-sponsors and big supporters of this. We have to give the credit to to Congresswoman Lynn Jenkins here from Kansas that has co-sponsored this. I know that many of our, I'm assuming that all four of our representatives from Kansas will be supporting this bill, but Lynn Jenkins has been one that has been a big sponsor of this, correct?
Yes. Thank you for bringing her name up. I did want to give her a shout out. She has been a co-sponsor right from the start, and I want to give her a special bit of recognition because I think in her district it might be a little tougher. She may be facing some anti-gun group pressure. Mm-hmm. So thank you to Lynn Jenkins for standing firm in the face of some of that pressure.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that it's helping her, obviously, because she is in a little bit more of a purple district, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So it is a little bit more difficult for her. I know she's not running for re-election, which may help that as well. But I do give her credit for very big credit for actually supporting this, being a co-sponsor, being able to push this through. I see it passing today in the House. The vote's going to happen this afternoon, and then we can hopefully stay on top of it to make sure our senators vote the same way. I am so excited about this national reciprocity, being able to carry and defend yourself no matter where you are in the country. The NRA, you guys do so much good work with this, and it's been ongoing. I know that it's been very frustrating for you guys because, like you said, you've had it ready, you've had it loaded, you've had it ready to go, but the stars haven't aligned for you guys to be able to really pounce on these things. Now's the opportunity, and luckily we can hopefully slip this through before the media gets a hold of it and tries to demonize it before it gets too far.
That's the truth. Well, thank you, Andy, for helping us get the word out. And thank you to all your listeners and the great people in Kansas who are fighting for this legislation alongside with us.
Hey,
thank you.
We love our guns. We love our Second Amendment, and we're not going to go anywhere without them here. Catherine Mortensen, media liaison for the NRA, thank you so much for jumping on the show last minute here and talking about this. It's big. We need to encourage everybody to not only call our representatives, but our senators as well to make sure to support this national reciprocity bill, because then we can actually defend ourselves, which just makes us feel all the more secure. So, Catherine, thank you so much for joining the show. We got to get you back on again soon.
Thank you, Andy. I'll give you an update when we have one.
Very good. That was Catherine Mortensen of the NRA, the media liaison for the NRA. We love chatting with her when we get an opportunity to do so. Now, she did not mention, as you noticed during the interview, she did not mention the NICS fix, or the Fix-NICS bill, whatever you want to call it, that's included in there, that a lot of individuals are kind of up in arms about, not quite sure exactly what that is. The House did approve the bill yesterday, 231 to 198, which means even Democrats voted for this. Democrats voting for the bill to support national reciprocity. Now, you could take that two ways. You could say, hey, they're finally on board with this, and this is something that even some of them have wanted. Look, a lot of Democrats are in some purple states, and they are somewhat advocates of the Second Amendment, which is good news. We should be very proud of that. We should be very happy about that. So even they may be Democrats, most Democrats are advocating for the extremists of starting to take away guns. These individuals are wanting to advocate for guns because they may live in purple states to where they may be that Democrat but still support the Second Amendment to some degree. If you remember, Bernie Sanders actually during the primary would talk about the Second Amendment, and he was an advocate of some guns as well. He was an advocate actually of most guns until he got into the mainstream towards the end of the primary, and then he kind of shifted his discussion. But as a senator from Vermont, he supported guns because hunting is a big thing in Vermont, and he wanted to support that. Not necessarily for the other aspects of the Second Amendment, but he at least tried to advocate for it, and he had been somewhat of a proponent for guns, at least earlier in his career, until he got into the main stage. So we'll talk about this national reciprocity bill. We'll get your thoughts on it. I really want to get your take on national reciprocity and this Fix-NICS bill. Does this change your support of it? Do you think that it needs to go away? Or is it misunderstood? We'll talk about that when we come back.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-America Network. Appreciate you hanging out with us today on a Thursday. It's a pre-Friday celebration. Big show today. Lots of things to get to. I love it, and I appreciate it all. All right, let's get into this, shall we, real quick? We've got some calls lining up, and I want to take your calls on this. Let me, first off, run down my understanding of the Fix-NICS bill. That is part of the national reciprocity, which the National Rifle Association has endorsed and supported and wrote the bill, co-sponsored by a massive amount of Republicans, with the Fix-NICS bill included in there, by the way. And then the Gun Owners of America, the GOA organization, has come out and opposed this bill because of the Fix-NICS, saying that this is actually what they had to say. Let's play some of the audio here. Congressman Thomas Massey had to make a comment in showing his opposition to this bill, being a gun advocate.
Hi, Congressman Thomas Massey here. I'm the chairman of the Second Amendment Caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives. I wanted to pass an important message to you. This week, we're going to be voting on the National Concealed Carry Reciprocity Bill. Normally, you should be very excited about this pro-Second Amendment bill. But unfortunately, our House leadership has decided to try and combine this bill with another bill called the Fix-NICS bill. Now, although this Fix-NICS bill was introduced in the Senate by a Republican, it has as its co-sponsors Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer. That gives me a little bit of cause for concern. Reading the bill gives me even more cause for concern. There's $790 million authorized in this bill, nearly $1 billion, as incentives to the states to introduce more names into the NICS database. And there's also provisions in the bill that would penalize the executive branch, the administrations within the executive branch, for instance, the Veterans Administration, Social Security Administration, if they don't provide all of the records into the NICS database that the Attorney General at the time thinks that they should provide.
Okay, let's stop right there. So concerned about the filing, concerned about the money, $790 million going towards this, concerned about the processing of this. This is really nothing different. There's nothing new about this bill. Now, the fact that they throw in Chuck Schumer and Dianne Feinstein, yeah, that's a concern. They're liberal progressives who have been trying to take away your guns for a long time. But in order to, do you remember what happened in Texas? with the shooting at the church, where the individual shouldn't have had a gun in the first place because he was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force. He was at a mental institution. The Air Force did not file his paperwork properly into the background check database, so when he purchased a firearm, nothing came up as a red flag. That's all we're talking about here, is that the paperwork gets filed properly, and all the money, the $790 million, goes towards incentivizing these programs and these departments to be able to file things properly and trying to find mainstream ways to do so. Now, we can talk about the expenditures of government and how they should be doing so in the first place, and I totally agree, but with this bill right now, that's all it does. That's all it does, is it allows them to file the paperwork properly. It does not expand the list of who's not allowed to get them. It does not expand anything other than filing the paperwork into the database properly so the background checks actually work and actually be a little bit more mainstream and a little more efficient. We'll continue this as well in hour number 2, but I do want to take some phone calls and get your thoughts on this. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Let's go to the phones here. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Oh, hello.
Scott.
There we go. Scott, how are you, sir?
Yeah, my question is, how come a city of 300,000 people can't handle 2,500 jobs? Because the 1,500 they lost, they could have employed a lot more people than the 1,000 jobs. I mean, I have no problem with the 1,000 jobs, but they could have had 2,500. I think this Hooterville mayor needs to get out of office and put somebody in there who can handle big business.
Well, it sounds like they're actually in support of it, ain't they? I appreciate the call, Scott. I don't want to really shift gears from that right now. That is a good topic, though, and actually in the third hour, I really want you to call back and talk about it because we will be having Lieutenant Governor Jeff Coyler talking about the announcement with him being in town yesterday and some of the stuff that happened in the area, which will create some jobs. So I appreciate that, and that's a good topic for later. But right now, I do want to try and stick on the Second Amendment here with this national reciprocity. I'm going to see if we can't get... that's a little late right now. So I was going to see if we can get Mark Walters to jump on the show with us here last minute to talk a little bit about this. But the big movement now is many conservative Republicans trying to stop this national reciprocity, which is huge. It's big news. It's exciting just because of the Fix-NICS, which doesn't really do anything other than try and make background checks actually a little more efficient, which is what we want in the first place, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with this. Let's make it happen, baby. Call your senators. Tell them to support. Tell them to vote for national reciprocity. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 2, The Voice of Reason, coming up here in just a minute. Stay tuned.
It's time for Reason.
They have really abused their power, saying, well, we're not going to tell you exactly how much money. They used to. This is how much money we need to see for it to be, quote-unquote, suitable, and that way you're constitutionally compliant. Nowadays, they say, yeah, you know what? We made a mistake back then. We're not allowed to tell you exactly how much because you do have the power of the purse, but only to some degree because we still get to tell you whether it's constitutional or not. So I can't tell you how much, but you need more money.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Why is it so cold? It's not supposed to be cold. No, I don't like this. No. 19 degrees is not okay with me. Where'd that 60-degree weather go that was like 3 days ago? What is this? Just because we're in the middle of December? Come on. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, KQAM 721-8255-721-TALK. I got to say, ask and you shall receive. This is awesome. I love the availability that we have here, and I love being able to get him on right now in the last segment, and the social media is blowing up. Everybody's up in arms. I've seen the posts all over the place, the video from Congressman Thomas Massie. As we talk about national reciprocity, we talked with Catherine Mortensen from the NRA yesterday talking about the bill. Tomorrow at 7:30, Congressman Ron Estes is going to be joining us to talk to us about the bill because he co-sponsored it along with Congressman Lynn Jenkins on national reciprocity. And now the news is coming out that along with the national reciprocity bill, which is very, very big, AWR Hawkins on Breitbart talked about this being the biggest piece of legislation since the NRA when it comes to gun rights. This is huge. The fact that you can carry your gun in other states and you can protect yourself. Social media is blowing up all over the place. And I know a lot of people are concerned. What is this other NICS fix bill? Why didn't we get the whole story, and what is this? And now Congressman Thomas Massie, along with the Gun Owners of America, the GOA, are coming out against this bill because not for the national reciprocity part of it, but for the NICS fix part of this that they say is very bad. So I called him up. We got him on the line here for a few minutes with us. I really appreciate that kind of short minutes because I figured my understanding of this is that it's not that big of a deal. All it does is it incentivizes the agencies to file the paperwork properly into the background database. That's all it does. Now, we can talk about spending the money. We can talk about the growth of the agencies. We can talk about that portion of it. But in itself, does this really harm us when it comes to Second Amendment rights? I figured we'd go to the expert as opposed to me just kind of bantering about it. From Armed American Radio, you can hear him live every Sunday from 7 to 10 at night. You can hear him weeknights with his daily defense hour at 8 o'clock right here on KQAM. Mark Walters on the line with us. Mark, what's happening, my brother?
Good morning, man. Hey, it's an exciting time to be a gun owner in America. It is really, truly an exciting time to be a gun owner. First off, A.W.R. Hawkins was absolutely correct. And I stated, if you're listening to the show yesterday, and I know you were, and a lot of your listeners were tuned in yesterday, I was live on the air while this vote was occurring. And you get the broadcast with a couple hours delay. It doesn't matter because you got great insight, political insight from Neil McCabe yesterday as this was unfolding. Mm-hmm. A.W.R. Hawkins was right, and I will reiterate, gun owners, this is the single most powerful piece of pro-gun legislation I have ever seen in my lifetime, this 2017 National Reciprocity Act. This is a big deal. As Joe Biden would say, this is a big satellite radio moment word deal, okay? There you go. It truly is a huge deal. Let's talk about the Fix-NICS for a second, because the bill was originally written as a standalone measure. By itself, it was probably the purest pro-gun rights bill we've seen ever.
Sure.
In our lifetime. Well, you've got political posturing here. I like to say on my radio program, if anybody's read the Sun Tzu, The Art of War, mm-hmm. You cannot refuse to accept the situation, okay? You simply cannot refuse to accept the situation. The general who knows the most about his enemy will win every battle and every war ever fought, period. Yes. And that's where we're at here. We cannot forget that Washington, D.C. is a political camp. We can't get around it. And from time to time, you've got to take what you can get when you can get it in step after step after step. Remember, this is not a done deal in the Senate. Whether that bill flew combined, Fix-NICS, combined with national reciprocity, or whether they were separate, both of them were going to pass the House. That's where we have to start this. The absolutist, and I'm an absolutist when it comes to the Second Amendment, you're never going to get my guns.
Right.
But I also understand how Washington is played. The Fix-NICS bill was moving, whether I like it or not. Now, I'm not going to say I don't want national reciprocity because of Fix-NICS. National reciprocity is bigger than Fix-NICS. There are some legitimate concerns with Fix-NICS as a standalone bill by itself, that being that we don't need a new law to make something work that's already a law.
Right.
What I'm talking about is the USA Today had a piece out a couple days ago talking about a breakdown in the background check system that allowed the individual in Texas, talking about the Air Force, okay, not reporting to the NICS. They reported that as a breakdown in the background check system that allowed this guy to get a gun. Well, I'm going to submit to you that that's not a breakdown in the NICS check system. It was a breakdown at the Air Force because they failed to do what is already written into the law that they should have already done.
They failed
and reported the guy.
Exactly. They failed to report his file properly, so when he applied
Correct.
for it, the red flags didn't pop up.
We don't need to fix the NICS. The NICS isn't broken. The Air Force is broken.
Right.
All right? Okay, so where there's concern is due process when you're talking about lists. As Americans, it is reprehensible that we put Americans on lists. And that's what people are concerned about with Fix-NICS right now. And that is, hey, all the proponents are saying all we're doing is putting teeth into what we already have. Now, that may be true. I don't know. Now you go back over to the Social Security, for example. Obama was wanting to put people who were on the Social Security and veterans who were incapable of taking care of their own monetary affairs on the NICS bill or on the NICS list, saying that they were unable to own a firearm or possess a firearm because they They demonstrated that they couldn't handle their own finances. Where the hell are those two equated, okay? This is the concern that Eric and Larry Pratt have at the Gun Owners of America. These are all legitimate concerns.
Sure.
The question now becomes, why were the bills combined? And let's not forget that we also have a third addition to the bill, and that was the bump stock provision was added to the concealed carry reciprocity bill.
Of course it was.
You've got three of them in here. Well, what is that? What does that mean, bump stock provision? What it says is it commissions the Attorney General to do a study on bump stocks, and it mandates that be done. So they attached it to the concealed carry reciprocity. Why did they put these three together? Because this bill has to move through the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the politics are going to play. Any of those three bills as standalone bills in the House were going to sail through the House individually. They were going to pass.
Sure.
In the Senate, if you had three standalone bills, I can promise you that the bump stock would have passed, that I can promise you that the Fix-NICS would have passed, and then I can look at the other one standalone and say, I can't promise you that concealed carry reciprocity would have gotten out of the Senate. There would be no incentive for any of the Democrats, and there are 10 of them, Andy, as you know, that have to run for re-election in 2018 in states that Trump won.
Yes.
So the theory behind this is, and I can't say for certain because I haven't spoken to any of the Congress folks involved, but it is my belief, and I've had some people confirm for me that it's true, that those in the House got together and put these together to make it more palpable and put some pressure on the Democrats in the Senate. Here's why. If you remove concealed carry reciprocity out of the equation in yesterday's vote in the House, you would have had the Everytown for Gun Safeties, the Brady campaigns, and Giffords, and the rest of them spinning the passage of Fix-NICS and the bump stock provision as what? A step in the right direction, right?
Exactly.
Now add concealed carry reciprocity to that.
They don't want to touch it.
They're not spinning it that way, are they? They don't want to touch it. And that puts significant pressure over on the Democrats, who now have been screaming for, quote-unquote, doing something about background checks.
And this is how we got some of the Democrats to actually vote for it in the House as well, because 5 or 6 Democrats ended up voting for it in the House. So you're saying that the Fix-NICS would have been there anyways. If we didn't attach national reciprocity to it, we wouldn't have gotten national reciprocity, while they would have advanced Fix-NICS, which isn't the most ideal legislation for gun rights. But we would have taken a step backwards while they promoted as doing something along with that, with the bump stock deal as well. But then we would have taken a couple steps backwards.
Well, what I'm telling you is concealed carry reciprocity and Fix-NICS and the bump stock provision, they were all three going to move through the House.
Sure.
They were all three passing. Whether they passed together or whether they passed standalone, they weren't not going to pass. They were coming out of the House, period.
But in the Senate, we have to lump them together. Right.
Well, the theory is that there's been some discussion with folks in the House with the Senate who are trying to move those through. Now, Cornyn, who wrote the bill, okay, the Republican from Texas, is working with Feinstein and Schumer and the rest of the gun grabbers, Blumenthal and Murphy in Connecticut. These are enemies of your freedoms. Mm-hmm. And all of us, including the Gun Owners of America, are wondering, why in the world is Cornyn working with these folks? There's politics being played behind the scenes, okay? That's just the way it is in Washington, D.C. The Gun Owners of America is out saying, no, we're not supporting this as it stands right now, which I would expect the Gun Owners of America to do. But I can tell you from a political standpoint right now, it is my personal belief, just an educated guess, I'm watching this for so many years, that there was a reason those were added to it. Now, of course, Cornyn's going to come out and say he doesn't want it attached. He has to say that.
Well, of course.
But the bill is still going to move through the Senate attached. That's the way it is. That's the way they're going to vote on it. It is the belief that because of the 2018 election, and again, it is my belief, that, in my opinion, that because of the elections coming up in 2018, that there are Democrats who now are going to have a very difficult time voting against that by saying, well, we had to take it, we had to vote for it, because at least we get something, we're moving something forward with Fix-NICS, and at least we got something on the bump stock provision, right?
Sure.
Because they have to run in states that Trump won. So that gives them really cover on both sides. Let's go all the way back to the National Rifle Association's statement after Vegas. When they came out with their statement after Las Vegas that gave cover to the bump stock ban. The NRA thinks that anything that resembles a machine gun or makes a gun function as a machine gun, for example, should be regulated. And then right there at the bottom of it, they combined it with a statement on national reciprocity. It didn't seem to fit.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know I think what we're looking at is the end result of that. The NRA gave everybody cover. You think anybody in the Republican Party is going to lose a grade or be downgraded because of a vote for Fix-NICS or bump stock provision? No, because of national reciprocity. If national reciprocity were not on that, the NRA would have hammered them on those two issues.
Exactly. Well,
they gave them political cover.
Exactly. Well, and let's look at Fix-NICS. As you mentioned, it is nothing more than a bill that encourages the efficiency of the system that's already broken, which, of course, putting a bill and a law on top of a law does nothing more than just to create more spider webs in the system. So it's not really going to even do anything other than make them spend a little more money and think that they're doing something productively. Does it really expand the database? I mean, there are negatives to it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it tries to expand the database. It tries to incentivize by spending $790-some million for the agencies to make sure they file their paperwork properly, because that's something apparently we have to pat them on the head and say, oh, great, you showed up to work today and actually had your coat on. It's pathetic, but at the same time, when it all comes down to it, it's minuscule compared to the progress we're making here.
Well, yes and no. I hate the Fix-NICS. We don't need the law.
Right.
What we need to do is enforce. The Air Force should have done its job.
Exactly.
But they didn't. So what happens now? You give these political animals in the swamp an opportunity to create another law that threatens, because we're talking about due process here. That's what's so vitally important. As Americans, we find lists to be reprehensible. How do you get on a list? How do you get off of a list that you're on when you find out you're on the list? How do you even find out you're on the list? You find out when you try to fly and you can't. Mm-hmm. You find out when you try to buy and you can't. That's how you find out you're on a list. How did I get on it? Now how do I get off? Well, those that would argue against me on that, saying, hey, wait a minute, read the NICS bill, read the Fix-NICS bill. It plainly states that there are 60 days, it's written into the Fix-NICS bill, that there are 60 days if a person challenges their name on that list. This codifies in law that the government has 60 days to explain why or remove that name from the list. Well, that sounds great, doesn't it? Unless you're that person that has to go through that bureaucratic hassle for that 60 days whose name should have never been there in the first place.
Right.
So the bill is no good. But now let's go back to reality. Let's go back to the fact that we cannot refuse to accept the situation.
Right.
Here in the state of Georgia, when I left Florida 13 years ago this month to move to the state of Georgia, Florida's gun laws blew Georgia's gun laws off the map, period. Because of Georgia Carry and their ability to work over the last 10 years, and I'm a part of that great organization, because of our ability to work over the last 10 years, we have taken Georgia's gun laws and flipped that scenario in that equation. I will not live long enough to see Florida's gun laws catch up to where we are in the state of Georgia now. We are one of the top 5 states for pro-rights gun laws in the country. Now, as a result, how did we get there? We got there by taking step after step after step, year after year after year. We took what we could get. If we sat and listened to the absolutist mentality, either or we're not going to support it, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are today.
Sure.
No, there has to be an art of compromise when you're talking about some of these bills. Look, background checks exist, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not telling you I like them. I can point to dozens of times that they have failed. Any mass shooting that you can go back to over the last 5 years, those killers passed background checks. Background checks are utter failures.
Right.
But here's the realist in me. They're not going anywhere. We're not going to get rid of the NICS system. It isn't going to happen. They exist. So let's make it better. How do we make it better? By fixing it? No, we don't need another bill like Fix-NICS. We make it better by having the Air Force enforce what they do. Now, those who like NICS bill, the proponents of it, are saying, well, that's what we're doing. We're putting teeth in it. So that's where the argument lies. Your question that you have to ask yourself is, well, it's in the bill. Am I glad we got concealed carry reciprocity out of it? I'm going to tell you right now on radio, you're darn right.
Absolutely.
You're darn right. National reciprocity is far bigger than any problem that Fix-NICS would create.
Wow, this is an issue that's really blown up, and I appreciate you jumping on here last minute. I got to say, we got about 45 seconds left before we got to take a break, but when I was on your show about a week or so ago and we were talking about this, I made the statement that I didn't think it was going to get through both chambers and the presidency before the end of the year, but now that this has become more of a mainstream discussion and talking point after it passed the House, and now all the gun activists are up in arms, and at least they're excited about the NICS fix, and we're excited about national reciprocity, it sounds like they want to sign on this before Christmas through the president's desk as well. So you might might be right. We might see national reciprocity before the end of 2017.
I am optimistic that this bill goes to Trump's desk. I think the bump stock provision and the Fix-NICS, while I am against both of them, I understand why they were put there. I think the bottom line is that it's going to be difficult for Democrats running for re-election to vote against two of the issues that they've been screaming about so loudly for. Then again, the concealed carry reciprocity bill is so good and it is so strong that could also give them cover to say, no, I couldn't support those other two because of that. It is going to be an uphill climb in the Senate. We're looking at two separate votes. We're going to have to flip some Democrats to bust that 60-vote filibuster, but I am optimistic we're going to see that bill on Trump's desk.
He's Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, Sundays live from 7 to 10 o'clock, also weeknights at 8 o'clock. Mark, I appreciate you jumping on last minute with me, my friend.
Thanks, brother. Looking forward to having the discussion as soon as we possibly can again.
Doing what we do. I love it. Mark Walters right there. Let's go ahead and take a break. We got some calls lining up. We'll get your thoughts on this. A big discussion. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Thanks again to Mark Walters jumping on last minute. The man himself, the expert when it comes to the Second Amendment and his take on the national reciprocity and the Fix-NICS bill. Again, the background check database is not going anywhere. And for them to put a law on top of a law, to me, just like any other law, is completely inefficient. It's not going to do anything. They feel like they're being productive. To me, it's just spinning their wheels while we get to advance what we want to advance. So, obviously, I agree with Mark. I wouldn't want it in there if we had a choice. But welcome to the political process, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name? Hello. Oh, I guess we lost them. 721-825-5721 Talk. That's all right. I want to hear from you and get your thoughts on this when we come back. It's a big deal as the video has been floating around social media and the news all over the place about Congressman Thomas Massie, who is part of the Gun Owners of America, the GOA. They are not in support of this national reciprocity bill just because of that fact. I'd like to ask again, are you willing to give up the largest piece of Second Amendment legislation really since the Second Amendment was created to allow you to defend yourself because of another law that they feel that they want to fix for themselves that really is not going to do anything? I mean, it's still not the best, obviously. We wouldn't want it there, but the benefits definitely outweigh the cons in this situation. Definitely, by far. Because guess what? If you increase your database, if you think that there's going to be more restrictions on people with guns and there's going to be more crime, listener on Facebook made a good comment. Hey, the Second Amendment corrects itself because there's more people with more guns traveling more places that they wouldn't be able to before, and there's going to be less crime and shootings because of that fact with people defending themselves. It's a good bill. I promise you it's going to be okay. Bottom of the hour news coming up here. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Talk radio to the next level. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM. It's great to have you along. Great to be with you here on a Thursday, the pre-Friday celebration, the Friday Eve, whatever you want to call it. Let's celebrate and make it a good one today, shall we? 721-825-5721 Talk. This portion of The Voice of Reason brought to you by Network Consultants, business owners. Listen up. I know you got your network, your computers, you maybe your shared folders, maybe you have some programs that you operate with, maybe you have a printer that's connected to the entire network for everybody to be able to work with. If any of these things go down, especially during the holidays when you're maybe in the busier season, if you're a retailer or a restaurant and things are crazy, you don't have time to have things go down. You don't have time to have a hacker get in and be able to steal all your information. You don't have time for your data to be lost because a computer crashed or your external hard drive failed and got corrupted. I've had that happen before. It's terrible. Talk about losing information. That's bad stuff there. Network Consultants can help you. They're an infrastructure company. They work with firewalls and sonic walls, database safety and security, VPN, backup solutions, network communication, even getting you set up on the cloud so that way you don't lose the information. When things go down, it costs more money to actually fix them than it does to maintain them, and you don't want to be in that position, especially this time of year when you're trying to wrap up, hopefully, a successful year for 2017. You got to prepare, by the way, for the new tax rates coming up in January as well, and the only way you can do that is to have your business running efficiently. Call them. They'll give you a free network analysis when you tell them that I sent you. Give them a call, 316-201-4624. They'll come out, visit your business, help you any way that you can, review your entire system, even guide you and teach you how to do the basics by yourself so that way you don't have to call them all the time. They have month-to-month plans available. You do not have to sign up for long-term agreements. It's very simple. Give them a call, 316-201-4624, 316-201-4624, or visit them online at network-consultants.com. Again, network-consultants.com. I am really excited about the show coming up today and tomorrow. Coming up in about 20 minutes, candidate for governor, Republican gubernatorial candidate Wink Hartman, is going to be in studio for a half an hour with us. We've been going through the list of different governor's candidates, and we have not gotten through all of them. We've only had a few on so far, working to still get the rest of them scheduled. My schedule, I've realized, has booked up. It meant I'm booked out like the first week of January already on the show for guests. It's going like hotcakes. It's a hot commodity, apparently. I don't know. But we're trying to get everybody on the show. We'll continue to reach out to individuals, trying to get people on. But Wink Hartman going to be joining us here in about 20 minutes, talking about the governor's race and his platform and what he's been up to. Looking forward to chatting with him. Also at 8:30, Lieutenant Governor Jeff Coyler is going to be calling in to talk about the big news that came out of Wichita yesterday with him in town and a bunch of individuals there. It was a big deal. New jobs coming to the area, new money being sunk in and invested into our area. This is good news. Kind of helped compensate and offset a little bit the Tyson plant that ended up kind of falling through. So big news there, and we'll talk with Lieutenant Governor Jeff Coyler coming up in just an hour from now. Tomorrow's a big deal. Probably one of the biggest shows that we've had so far. It's full of guests, by the way, the Free For All Friday. I try and keep Free For Alls open for you to be able to talk about whatever you want to on a Friday. It's going to be very difficult tomorrow, but I'm okay with that for a week because I'm really, 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 really excited about this. At 7 o'clock tomorrow, we're going to be talking with President Donald Trump's personal advisors. Two of them, not just one, but two of them, Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie. They co-authored the book, Let Trump Be Trump. You've heard them all over the media outlets lately talking about their new book. They were Corey Lewandowski being the campaign manager for Donald Trump, David Bossie being the deputy campaign manager for Donald Trump, both of them now being personal advisors to the president in the White House. They're going to be joining the show at 7 o'clock tomorrow. At 7:30, we'll have Congressman Ron Estes calling in to talk about the National Reciprocity Bill and the details of that, along with the Fix-NICS portion of that bill, as you just heard with Mark Walters in the last segment. In the 8 o'clock hour, he'll be speaking at the Wichita Pachyderm Club tomorrow, but he's in studio with us for the entire third hour. Senator Jim DeMint going to be joining us here in studio. Kind of a big deal. Tomorrow is the show of all shows, kind of, and I'm really excited about that. But until then, it's open lines to you for the next few minutes here. 721-8255, 721-TALK. Bringing it back on the local front here for just a second. I do want to talk about something that I find quite comical yet interesting and entertaining all at the same time. And it's about, and I've had a beef with this, not just here in Wichita, but in all areas. It drives me nuts. I know that it can be dangerous. I know that it's the peak of the hot season. I get it. But come on. Wichita, I got this email, by the way, talking about a PETA plea, which, yeah, okay, good luck. I don't really care about PETA, but here's what it said. Wichita mayor urged to uphold city's animal-friendly firework restrictions. There's been a movement in the Wichita area to be a little more relaxed when it comes to the fireworks regulations within city limits. Let me tell you a story. This last 4th of July, we went to the fireworks stand, walking around, just one in town here, walking around trying to find the goodies. We found some sparklers, found some fun stuff, found some whatever here and there. Wanted to get one of the really big ones, you know, the ones that shoot up 200 feet up in the air and explode and have this magical, beautiful thing. It's America, for crying out loud. It's the 4th of July. It's the most patriotic day of the entire year. Do not tread on my fireworks. That's the way I feel. I'm sorry. I know that there are fire dangers. I lived in Colorado. You're not allowed to shoot fireworks off in the mountains. I totally get it. But it's America. It's the 4th of July. Don't tread on me and my fireworks. And I think that we need to release massive bans and restrictions on the firework regulations here in the city. And I want to get your thoughts on this. 7218255. Do you think that we should loosen some of the regulations on fireworks? They shoot them off anyways. It's kind of like the drug thing. You ban the drug, they still do it behind the scenes. You ban alcohol, they do it behind the scenes. You ban prostitution, people still do it behind the scenes. People continue to do these things that are still illegal. And I'm not saying right, wrong, or indifferent on any of these things. It's against the law. It's against the law. But nonetheless, people continue to do them. The fireworks, you still see people shooting off the major fireworks within city limits. We need to loosen up that regulation. I see no reason whatsoever in any situation why you can't have it above 15 feet tall. Why? Come on. People are going to do it. I don't know if it's to be able to promote the organized shows of the fireworks. And I know this is kind of off topic for December, talking about something coming up in January, but they're talking about it now so they can prepare for January. And here's the letter. Now, I urge Mayor Jeff Longwell to support the idea of loosening up some of the bans on firework restrictions here in the city. Here's the letter that he received, though, from PETA, because it's all about the animals.
It is totally absurd.
Yeah, a little bit. But what do you do? Dear Mr. Longwell, I'm writing on behalf of the people of ethical treatment of animals, a.k.a. people eating tasty animals, and our more than 6.5 million members and supporters worldwide, including many across Kansas. In response to the City Council's vote this week to consider loosening Wichita's firework regulations, we urge you to maintain the restrictions on fireworks for the benefit of all of Wichita's residents. I'm assuming all of Wichita's residents include their animals, because I didn't know animals could be resident, but what do you do? To dogs, cats, and wildlife, fireworks sound like an all-out war. That's the point! And they have devastating consequences. Terrified dogs climb or dig their way out of fenced yards as they frantically try to escape the chaos, resulting in increased stray animal intake at animal shelters across the nation. Do we have any stats on this, please? Can I show you some numbers on this, please? Which further strain the community resources. Many animals arrive with bloody paws or broken bones, and some are never reunited with their families, and others are doomed to worse fates. Can I see some numbers on this, please? You can't just, puppy dogs die in the gutter when fireworks go off because they're so scared, and how dare you think about this? This is the argument that we have. Loud fireworks scare wildlife, especially deer, into running onto the roads, where some are hit and killed by vehicles. Birds have been known to abandon their nests, leaving their eggs vulnerable to predators. Oh, no. We can't be having that. A team of scientists used weather radar to track reactions of birds to firework displays for 3 years and found that tens of thousands of them took flight when the explosions began and continued flying for the duration of the shows. Oh, no! Most birds cannot see well in the dark, so this type of disruption can cause them to injure themselves by crashing into power lines, cars, buildings, trees, and each other. Well, we need to watch out for windows, too. I think we should ban windows because it may potentially harm the birds when they run into them. In one case, 5,000 birds died on New Year's Eve in Arkansas after a fireworks display caused them to take flight and crash into objects such as houses and cars. The stress caused by the displays is not limited to animals. Veterans and others suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder may be sensitive to the deeply disturbing noises by the explosives. And as you probably know, Wichita area hospitals were already busy this year treating firework-related injuries. The number of incidents may be even higher next year if the city loosens firework restrictions. We hope you'll keep the current restrictions in place, but if you do decide to revise your policy, please consider permitting only silent fireworks. I didn't even know they had silent fireworks. That kind of takes away the entire fun of having a firework. Rich in colorful effects and visual choreography, silent fireworks offer a stress-free celebration for noise-sensitive animals, children, veterans, and elderly people. Thank you for your time. We look forward to hearing from you. Sincerely, Executive Vice President of PETA. Now, I make fun of the animal thing because the animal thing is completely absurd and ridiculous. I do see the argument for veterans and the PTSD. Here's my response to that. As we are the most patriotic show on radio. We respect our veterans in all shapes and forms and everything that they have gone through. And that is the one case, that is the one argument that I totally see. The fact is, though, everybody does it still, and the bangs are no louder, whether it's from the one that's only 15 feet high with the screeching sounds or whether it's the big one banging up in the air. Both of them make lots of noise, and if you're going to be worried about that one specific issue, then you should ban all fireworks just for that purpose. The fact that we still have fireworks, it's still going to be noisy, it's still going to be loud, it's still going to be bright, and it's still going to happen, whether you had the little 15-foot little streaky ones or whether you're going to, what are they, the sparklers? Or not the sparklers, the showers, the fireworks showers, or the big ones that boom up in the air. They're going to be noisy regardless. For the animal thing, it's completely laughable and absurd. Why not loosen up the restrictions for fireworks? 721-825-5721-TALK. Maybe it's not that big of a deal to you, but to me it is, because don't tread on me and my fireworks. Just don't do it. I want my fireworks. Let me tell you, sir, back in Ohio when I was a kid, that's where we grew up. We had the big 80 acres of land and the big farm and everything. It was beautiful. Our 4th of July party as a family was the biggest gathering in the county. The entire county would show up to our house. We would have the volleyball net. We were, my parents raised pigs, raised hogs, and we would always grab a hog and have a massive hog roast. We'd have 400 people at our house for 4th of July. Biggest party in the county. It was great. We'd spend $500 on fireworks in that night after drinking adult beverages and having a good, not me because I was a kid, but the adult beverages and having a good time and having the party and everybody gathering. We would shoot off massive amounts of fireworks late at night until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was the greatest day still as a kid that I could remember. Every single year. It was a fantastic party. Every single year. A great celebration. It was a big change for me when I moved to Colorado because you were not allowed to do fireworks in the mountains because there was always the drought effect. We had the pine needles and the pine cones. You don't get a whole lot of snow. It was just cold, but everything was dry and everything could start a fire just like that. Understood it. Did not shoot off fireworks. It was very, very hard for me growing up, going from massive fireworks to nothing. And now here you come and it's so excited. Fireworks, baby. I get to shoot them off again. Oh, you can't do it above 15 feet and it's just going to be a little shower. Oh, that was so beautiful, wasn't it? Come on. Come on. Let us shoot us off. Let us enjoy the celebration. Let us enjoy the fireworks. Let us enjoy the holiday and what it's intended for. As for the veterans, we understand that that's very difficult for some individuals. They anticipate it. They brace themselves every single year for it. If you're really, truly, honestly concerned about your animal, and as you know, I may be a little biased in the sense because I'm not the biggest pet person or the biggest animal person. I do not care for pets in any way, shape, or form. That's just my personal opinion. That's just what I personally do. I don't care. To me, if you're really, truly, honestly concerned about it, take them to the basement and hold them during the event, and they'll be fine. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? 721-825-5721-TALK. Good morning. What's your name?
Tom.
Hey, good morning, Tom. How are you?
Good.
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I have to say, if you just mentioned you're not much of a pet person, so that may explain it. But you know, if you've ever had a dog that was just flat out terrified of the bangs, you might feel a little bit differently. But you know, if you're not big on pets, well, I can understand that. And
sure, and I admit that I don't have that sensitivity to the dog, so I may be a little biased in that sense. The bangs that are already happening, though, is it going to be, do you think, a difference if we do?
Probably not. You know, I'd like to see them have like specific areas where things could be shot off.
Sure.
To where, you know, it's not just the whole city is blanketed and you can't get away from it.
Sure. And I could see that. I mean, that would be a good stepping stone, I guess, in the right direction of here's some restricted areas where you can't, here's some other areas where you can, and, you know, have at it and have some fun. And you're right. I mean, if the animals are don't like that, I mean, I don't know what you do. I mean, do you take them in the basement and try and comfort them and let them ride it out? Do you? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you do.
Yeah, but when it goes on for hours and days,
sure,
and you can't even take the dog out to do their business. then, it gets to be a real problem.
Sure. I get it. And Tom, I got to take a break. I appreciate the call very much so. And I understand I'm the first to admit that I am not sensitive to the animal thing just because that's just not me. That's not my personal thing. I don't, to me, that doesn't bother me. We do have a dog. My wife is a huge dog lover. We do have a dog. I don't think we had her this year before or during 4th of July. I think we got her after 4th of July. So she has not experienced the fireworks thing. I don't know how she's going to respond to it. But again, I just have that lack of sensitivity to that, so that doesn't bother me in that sense. Now, I do agree with you wholeheartedly that it shouldn't go on for days. There's a 4th of July day being the July 4th, and that's when you fire off the fireworks. That way, everything's condensed into one night, and you only have to ride through a few hours of it for one night as opposed to it going off for a week long. That I'm totally in favor of, and maybe that would help out with the animals as well. They only have to endure one night of it as opposed to 4 or 5 nights. 721-825-5721 Kind of an interesting discussion as we're discussing it now. Now we're talking about it for the New Year's celebration, potentially with fireworks there, and then, of course, 4th of July next year. The City Council discussing this, the mayor looking at it and receiving that letter from PETA. We'll get your thoughts on that and more when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Join me for The Dana Show here on the Big Talker, KQAM 1480 AM and 102.5 FM.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Just wrapping up hour number 2 right now. When we come back, gubernatorial candidate Wink Hartman going to be joining in studio for about 30 minutes. Thank you. I have not received yet, and I'm waiting for it now, the hate mail. How dare you not like pets? I'm sorry. It's just not my thing. I got too much to do, and I just don't have time to walk them and tend to them and do that. It's just not my thing. I get it. I know people love it, and I'm not attacking anybody for it. The PETA letter, though, takes it to another extreme. Birds are going to be disoriented because of fireworks. I don't think that a few more banging up in the air as opposed to only 15 feet high streaking with the showers are going to make a big difference. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 3, The Voice of Reason, coming up. Lots more to get to along with your calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
They have really abused their power, saying, well, we're not going to tell you exactly how much money. They used to. This is how much money we need to see for it to be, quote-unquote, suitable, and that way you're constitutionally compliant. Nowadays, they say, yeah, you know what? We made a mistake back then. We're not allowed to tell you exactly how much because you do have the power of the purse, but only to some degree because we still get to tell you whether it's constitutional or not. So I can't tell you how much, but you need more money.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again.
Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3. Right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. It's a Thursday. It's a pre-Friday celebration. It's a Friday Eve, whatever you want to call it. It's a great day in America. In America, don't tread on me. That's what we're all about. 721-825-5721 Talk. Let's get right into it. We are shifting gears towards the 2018 midterm elections and the gubernatorial race for the state of Kansas. We've talked to Ethan Randallis. We've talked to Mark Hutton. We have a lot more lined up on the show in the next few weeks. And in studio with us right now, another Republican GOP candidate for the governor's race 2018, Mr. Wink Hartman in studio. It's been a while since you've been in the KQAM studios. How are you?
Hey, Andy. It's great to be back. In fact, same studio I did for 4 years or 3 years with Rick Everett, so I feel at home.
Every Wednesday with Wink.
Hey, this is exciting for me. I'm with you on the Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason.
I mean, well, I heard the earlier little stint about fireworks. I don't know if it's a voice of reason, but you have an opinion.
I have an opinion of alleged reason. I'm going to stick with that one.
Okay.
That's right. There we go.
All the animal lovers out there, just go ahead and call in. I'm here.
That's right.
I'm here now.
And again, I don't hate people that love animals, or I don't hate animals. It's just not my thing. It's just not my thing. We got such limited time with you. We're going to get you on again here during the time of the debates. We talked to Mark Hutton. We're going to do the same with him. But how's the campaign going so far? You've been all over the place.
Oh, Jiminy, Andy. February 15th, to pick a date.
Right.
It's just, I remember the date well. I've been traveling now for nine and a half months, whatever it's been. And I seriously have been all the way from one end of the state, north, south, east, and west.
Wow.
I have talked to tens of thousands of people. It's really energizing to hear what the people, the people of Kansas, the real heart of this state.
Sure.
And I hear the same thing over and over and over again, no matter my location. So it's a very definite direction the people of Kansas want this state to go, and they are definitely looking for leadership at this point.
Well, and you started your campaign early. I've talked to the other candidates, and they're getting going. Mark Hutton's been doing some events, and he's been getting out a little bit. But I mean, you said you started earlier this year. You've already got the bus. The hashtag Fed Up is your kind of campaign deal. You've been all over the place. And what's the response you've gotten so far?
It's been very, very heartwarming, energizing, like I said. The people are truly looking, as they say, outside the box. They are a little bit worn with the establishment. They are very, very worn out with career politicians. Not a knock on the others, but everybody else running for governor on the Republican ticket, all are career politicians. So as I always say, and I've said tens of thousands of times out there on the campaign trail, I am truly the only outsider. My world is the business world. That's all I've ever done, and I'm trying to put money to the bottom line and feed the family.
Well, and I want to ask you the same question that I've asked everybody else so far, and that I'm going to ask everybody else. And coming from that business side, what's the take on the business atmosphere in the state of Kansas? We've had the tax increases. We've had, they say, stagnant job growth. We've seen 17-year unemployment rates. We've seen kind of back and forth on what the economy looks like in the state. But from the business perspective of this, what have you seen? Well,
from the business side, it is. I always want to say any of the glass is half full. I refuse to, I give in to some of the statistics and some of the rumor mongers. Kansas is the greatest place in the United States from which to raise a family and build a small business. I've built multiple small businesses, and it can be done in this state. It is the best place. I want the United States, and I want our peer group, Colorado, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Missouri. I want everybody to understand Kansas is open for business. I'm highly concerned about some of the rhetoric, some of the discussion on different companies that may or may not come to Kansas. Kansas is open for business. As in the leader of Kansas, that will be priority one to people in the United States to understand we are open for business, and we do want to be inclusive for you to come here. Very, very important. Everybody talks about building jobs. The reality is I've actually done it.
Sure. Let's talk about your platform a little bit. Going into this session, I got to ask you, the 2018 session, legislative session, some say it's going to be just kind of a done and over, quick, get in and get out, get done because we have the midterms coming up next year. Others say it's going to be a bloodbath. We have the education debate. There's a lot of shenanigans happening in the state, and we're really unstable on what direction we're going to go. At the end of the session in 2018, what do you want to see come out of it for you to say this was a success and we can go into the elections properly?
Well, I think you're going to see from day one it's going to be very contentious. You have, in my opinion, 3 different factions up there, possibly even 4, depending on how individuals look at that. But to answer your question directly, Andy, I'm very much desirous of the number one issue, as I've covered this entire state, is funding for education. That has to be solved. It has to be put to bed once and for all. We cannot keep the optics out there to, like I said, our peer group. We're going to close the schools July 1st. Well, if you're thinking about moving to Kansas, or you're thinking about bringing a company to Kansas, and you're reading the paper, the schools are going to close July 1st, you're probably not going to come to Kansas.
It makes you second guess it.
Oh, boy. Well, it pretty well shuts it down in any further discussion of Kansas. I believe very strongly there is plenty of money in the education system. Okay, that may shock a few, but there's plenty of money in the education system.
I don't know if the media would agree with you on that one.
Well, the media and I need to maybe have a little serious chat. I mean, Jiminy Christmas. But the point is, I call this umbrella of management, upper management. And yes, it is superintendents, and yes, it is principals, non-instructional. Okay, we need to prioritize. We only have so much money in the bucket. Let's prioritize so the teachers, the people that are at the instructional level, that's where the money should be aimed. And that's what a school is, a business to teach children. Just like an oil company that I own searches for oil. They teach students. Let's prioritize the money to Tommy and Judy and the instructors and make sure they get that education that they need to prosper in this state.
Can we change or amend the Constitution so this way it does not happen in the future again?
Oh, sure. I say sure. I say it with a smile.
Theoretically, yes.
Right. Theoretically, on paper.
Sure.
Yes, it could be done. Will it be done this session? I think there's some discussion at this point. Today it's probably discussion. But the way the legislature's laid out and you start counting heads, I see no way today that can be done.
Is there a way that, or is this should be a focal point in the legislature or you as governor, if you end up getting that position, to focus on the powers of the Supreme Court so that way we can start to limit this from future activity as well?
Well, I think most Kansans would agree. The Supreme Court has become the centerpiece of the School of Finance, as we all know. My attitude about that is, and I say it on the campaign trail, if the Kansas Supreme Court justices want to be on the Appropriations Committee, where all monies start, including education, why don't they take their robes off, resign from the Kansas Supreme Court, go run for state legislature, then get yourself appointed to the Appropriations Committee, and you should have a voice that you are elected to represent. I truly believe, not a lawyer, but I truly believe that the Kansas Supreme Court has their nose in some place that they really shouldn't be. Kansas Constitution in education talks about a suitable education. Mm-hmm. That's in the Kansas Constitution. The Constitution, which I respect very, very much like the United States Constitution. Suitable education. It does not speak about adequate, equitable. Those are great words and great terms, but they have been created by our Kansas Supreme Court, and the reality is suitable education. And the people of Kansas, the local school boards, let's get this out of the Supreme Court, back to the neighborhoods, back to the local school boards that were elected to represent those children. Mm-hmm. That's where the decision should be made.
Well, even the comment in just the word of suitable, it's even when we look at, okay, who's suitable or what's suitable to, and it talks about the government. It doesn't even talk about the schools. It doesn't talk about the children as the benefit of this. It's suitable to the government.
Well, that's another great discussion I have when I'm out on the campaign trail. Do we have government schools? Or do we have public schools?
Right.
Well, I always say, I was raised in the public school system in Wichita, Kansas. But more and more and more, I hear what you just said. People out there of all ages are starting to equate, gee, do we have government schools or public schools? And I'm starting to hear that quite a bit. So I think that's another thing on the horizon. People are starting to be very intelligent about discerning how the education system is being run and by who. The way it should be done, Garden City, Kansas, to pick a town, Tribune, just pick a town in western part of the state. The education that, say, somebody in 5th grade in Garden City, that education will probably be a little different than somebody in Blue Valley or Olathe or...
Just a little bit.
Well, but, yeah, hopefully they're going to learn 2 and 2 is 4. Hopefully they're going to learn to read. But some of the other peripheral stuff that is part of an educational system, I think there's going to be a little bit of difference according to those people's Board of Education, elected by the local citizens. Very, very important we get education back to the community.
Well, it is really good to hear that on the campaign trail, as you're talking to people, they're beginning to be aware of this and they're starting to address it. So that is good. It's coming up in the forums here. Got to take a break. 728-255-72 and talk another segment with candidate Wink Hartman for Governor 2018. When we come back, we'll touch on some of the tax rates and some of the visions with his platform for the race in the state of Kansas here. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, right here on the Big Talker, KQAM. Wink Hartman, candidate for the governor's race 2018, in studio with us here for another few minutes. Lieutenant Governor Jeff Coyler going to be joining in Not to talk about his campaign, but to talk about the lieutenant governor's duties and him being in town yesterday with the big announcement on potential job growth. So we'll talk about that coming up at the bottom of the hour. Wink Hartman here in studio with a little bit here as well. And appreciate you coming in studio. It's always great to chat with you.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be back.
It's always fun. Let's shift gears from education a little bit. I know that's probably been one of the bigger hot topics on the campaign trail everybody brings up.
Yep.
But the other one is last session, largest tax increase in state history. Retroactively, by the way. They say it's not retroactive because it was January 1, not the year prior. But still, we're going to owe 6 months worth of that difference when we file our taxes in April next year, along with another tax rate increase come January 1, 2018. So even in the Republican field right now, it's been a little back and forth of good idea, bad idea, helped us, didn't help us. What's your take on this whole debacle?
Well, since 1861, when we became the great state of Kansas, this is the largest tax increase on record ever. Keyword ever.
Ever.
Now, the other word that you used, which my ears kind of catch on fire a little bit, is retroactive.
Yes.
Wow.
Ex post facto.
You put the money that you've earned, worked hard for, and you put it in your billfold of your purse, and, you're going to go to Walmart, and, you got to buy groceries for the week for your kids or tennis shoes or whatever it may be. Oh, excuse me, sorry. I need to take some out of your purse or your billfold. I know that you earned it, and I know it's past tense, but don't worry about those things. I need that money back.
Right.
That is the most unbelievable thing that I have ever seen in politics, and believe me, I've been around a long time, and I've seen a lot of things that are very unusual, but that is totally unacceptable. Now, Andy, let's look at the realities. I own 5 or 6 businesses, which I'm very, very involved in. If I create something in the world of business that I'm included in, and I do something that's going to decrease my revenue, I make an act and I go, oh, Jiminy Chris, my revenue is going to drop by 50% in company X. Well, what should I do? Jiminy, I'm going to sit down with my budget, and I'm very quickly, not years later, very quickly, within days or weeks.
Like before it takes effect sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. Kind of before the blood runs, But then the damage is done. I'm going to take and have to offset that decrease in capital because I know it's going to happen because I created it. So I'm going to have to find efficiencies. I'm going to have to find other things I can do to tighten my belt, right? So I get things to match because I just can't go down the road, obviously, spending money I don't have. So that's the key. What did the state do? They put a tax policy in place, which, quote, overall wasn't that bad. The implementation was terrible. What they did, they took the checkbook, your money and mine, they took the state's money, they took the people's money out of the desk drawer and started writing checks at a horrific rate. How in the world can government, can state leadership look the people in the eye and say, gee, we created a situation to save you money. Okay, good. But in the very next breath, we spent an additional $300-500 million extra that we didn't have above and beyond what we spent before. Mm-hmm. So not only did we tighten our belts, find efficiencies, that was totally neglected. We just continued, the state, continued to spend money above and beyond what they had in the past.
Sure.
It was doomed to fail. I mean, anybody knows when you're marching to the cliff with no parachute, maybe you better turn around and look behind you. So I refer to it in like the interstate. The interstate has rest stops, right? Wow, called rest stops. Get off the interstate, rest, have a sandwich, whatever, take a nap, whatever you do at the rest stop, right? Mm-hmm. There should have been rest stops in that policy. At the end of the year or at a given time frame, there should have been an open window where we sit down, how are we doing, how are we meeting revenue, are we hitting our estimates, etc. Oh, no. We put blindfolds on and marched dutifully to the cliff because the legislature was unwilling to go back and see if the policy was working. And so we waited till the policy was not working until it failed, and then we had to take money out of the people's pocket retroactively. We got about 2.5 minutes here before we got to let you go, but your vision, your platform, your campaign, the hashtag is Fed Up, and that's what you've campaigned on for this last however many months now. Your vision as governor, if you get into that seat, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to see? Well, the first thing we need to accomplish is stabilize education. Put that to bed Stability. We need to do that. DCF, they've lost 70-plus children. What in the world? I mean, you run out of breath sometimes. One child is too many.
Right.
70? I mean, this is unbelievable. What do? We take and replace the leader of the DCF with another leader of DCF, and like a big smoke screen, it's all going to go away.
It reminds me of that refugee program.
Oh, boy. The number one thing I want to leave with the listeners, number one priority for the state of Kansas is somebody with leadership skills, call the balls and the strikes, somebody that has the ability to be a strong leader, not sit in a desk, not sit behind a closed door, be out there with the people, a strong leader. Let me leave with this one observation. Everyone running for governor is part of where Kansas is today. They all were a part of making the decision to put Kansas where it is today. Do we think we're going to be able, the people, are they going to be able to elect one of those people that created the policies to get us where we are, and then all of a sudden say, gee, snap your fingers, run across the street, and now fix what you created? The career politicians got us here. I would offer that I am the leader to take the state forward and make the changes necessary so the people of Kansas once again can be proud of their state and live out their dreams.
Wink Hartman, businessman and candidate for governor 2018. How can people get a hold of you in your campaign if they want to help out?
Well, Jiminy Christmas. Wink Hartman, Kansas.com would be a great place. And Andy, now that you mention that,
yes,
there's a little square that says, donate.
Donate. That's right. That button right there.
Oh, yeah. And you know the little mouse? Unless you have touchscreen or some other method. But just click on that little donate and don't be proud. I'll take $5, $10. Just love to hear from everybody out there. Thank you, Andy, and God bless.
We appreciate you coming in here. We'll get you back on before the debate in February. I want to get all the candidates on, so thank you for coming in studio, my friend. It's good to talk to you. Always a great time. Bottom of the hour news coming up when we come back. Lieutenant Governor Jeff Coyler shifting gears a little bit to what happened yesterday with talking about some of that business and the industries. Will we see some money moving into the Wichita area? We'll talk about that when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos.
The fastest growing radio show in Kansas.
What? How's he do that?
That's what I'm talking about.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's just the way we roll, baby. Welcome into The Voice of Reason right here on KQAM. It's an honor to have you along, truly. It really, truly, honestly is. We couldn't do this without you because you're just that super freaking awesome, and we love you for it. 721-825-5721-TALK. Thanks again to Wink Hartman coming in studio for the last half hour on his run for the gubernatorial race 2018. That's going to heat up here probably beginning of the year, especially with the big debate happening potentially in February. More details for that to come. But let's shift gears a little bit from that. And as you know, one of the biggest issues that we've had is what are we going to do with job growth? What are we going to do with industry? What are we going to do to get ourselves back on track? Under President Donald Trump, jobless claims have dropped dramatically. It's been massive. We've seen a 17-year unemployment rate low here in the state of Kansas. We're moving in the right direction, but can we get our industries back? And to talk a little bit about that with a big announcement that happened yesterday that is extremely exciting with Spirit AeroSystems and their plan with their announcement. Lieutenant Governor Jeff Coyler, who was here in Wichita yesterday with that announcement, is on the phone with us here this morning. Lieutenant Governor Coyler, how are you, my friend? Great to talk to you.
Oh, man, what a great day it is. It's just a little too chilly for me.
I tell you what, less than a week ago, I was waking up at 5 a.m. and driving in at 60-degree weather. Now it's 18. I'm not okay with this change.
You know, the average temperature in Kansas is 70 degrees. We just don't talk about the outliers on it.
That's right, the little extremes on there. I think we need to call Al Gore and talk to him about some of the things he may have done to our climate. I don't know. Bring it back up a little bit. Let's talk about the big announcement yesterday. You were in town here in Wichita for the big announcement from Spirit AeroSystems. What happened? What do we get to look forward to?
Well, we've been working on this for a long time, and it's really great to have this during the Christmas season. But this is the most important. It is that Spirit is going to be investing $1 billion into Wichita, and that this means about 1,000 high-skill aviation jobs. And that's an incredible announcement. And it also has other impacts, too, because it also means more homes, more building, more cars. And that really translates into another 3,000 jobs across the region.
How long has this been in the works for? I know that, they had to have planned this for a little bit. I'm sure that the Trump economy, with it picking up and with aviation beginning to come back, has definitely helped out with this. Spirit AeroSystems employs almost 11,000 employees in the area, the largest employer here for our area. This had to have been kind of in the works to see the progress and the potential here for our community.
Wichita is the air capital of the world, and there's a lot of competition out there, and so we were really looking at this. And as they're looking forward, right now there are about 26,000 commercial aircraft flying around the world. They expect to build 40,000 new commercial aircraft over the next 20 years.
Wow!
And so what that means is we've got a lot of competition, and we've got a lot of potential work that we can do.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. You mentioned the different jobs and a little bit more on the higher end jobs because, we're going to be looking for manufacturers. We're going to be looking for engineers. We just came through, and I see it as a loss right now. A lot of people still disagree with me, and that's okay. But the loss of the Tyson plant that was potentially coming to Sedgwick County, and that hasn't gone anywhere now that Tyson's focusing on Tennessee and their plant they're building there. And that was going to be close to 2,500 jobs. This one only being 1,000, but at the same time, it's a little bit higher end jobs that's going to bring a lot more money into the economy, correct?
Well, what we're focusing on is how do we really grow our great strengths that we have. Mm-hmm. And we like to have all sorts of jobs in the state of Kansas. We need to diversify our economy. But aviation is a core piece of what makes this state go. It has been for 100 years. And we're going to really look after this because we've got the best workforce in the world. And when I go and I'm talking to manufacturers and to other companies, they see we have lots of small businesses that feed into this. They see all of the suppliers that are a part of the engineering chain and all of the production chain. And so they see this as a place where, wow, we can really compete, and they can gear up. They can get their stuff done on a very competitive price.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is going to be huge for us. How long is it going to take for this growth and for them to begin this process of the expansion?
Well, I can't speak for the company directly, but what they're telling us is that they expect this $1 billion in investment to happen over the next 5 years. That's a lot of money that's going in. But they expect to hire about 800 new workers in the next year or so. They're going to start building in 2018. Fantastic. And they expect to hire another 800 folks.
That's really cool. Now, when you mentioned the $1 billion investment, describe what all that entails for individuals. That's the hiring of the employees. Maybe that's building another building and another to manufacturing plant. It goes into a lot of different areas. It's going to help kind of an all-around plethora of different parts of the economy.
Well, they're going to be building new buildings, rehabbing some of their current ones, but they described it as hundreds of thousands of square feet that'll be added on. And you should see these manufacturing systems. They can make a composite, so you can make like a third of a 767 on one machine. It is one part, and they're making it out of a carbon fiber. This is a highly technical. This is one of the highest, most technical jobs there is.
How cool. I've never seen the process like this. So, yeah, I'd be curious to see how this is all done because not only does it take the equipment to bring in and actually be able to make that and make a product, but the people making the equipment that makes the product and it goes on down the line. This is huge for everybody here.
Oh, yeah. And that's what makes Wichita, it's what makes Kansas great. And one of the other strategic things that we have, as I look at it, is we're smack dab in the middle of the United States. Mm-hmm. And what that means is by rail, we are 18 hours from anywhere in the United States, 2 hours by plane. And that means that we can take advantage of that strategic advantage. And we've got great schools, great roads, and we're going to work on these things, and we're going to start bringing all of these issues together.
It's really encouraging to see this expansion, especially after what happened last year with the tax increases at the legislative level and the potential for more tax increases down the road, depending on if the legislators can actually, get their job under control and they can actually get the budget under control there. And I don't want to go down that road in this sense, but it is encouraging to hear that with that, I want to say, looseness and not understanding where we may go in the future of the state when it comes to tax rates, that Spirit AeroSystems is still willing to still stay here in the area, still stay in the state, still stay in the community, and still invest $1 billion worth of that into our area.
They're the hometown team, and they are just a great leadership team there. They're really committed to the state of Kansas, and one of the things though is they're a part of a lot of solutions. So, for example, they're doing internships in high schools so that we can train these kids from an early age so that they have high-tech, high-skilled jobs here in Kansas. I like that sort of partnership. Mm-hmm. They're partnering with Wichita State and lots of the local communities, and this really affects across the state here. I mean, my dream is I want my kids to see their future here in Kansas. I think that's what all of us are thinking about, because it's real easy to, lose them and try to go find their dreams someplace else. But we can do it with low taxes, great schools, but great businesses, and we're going to really work on that business climate.
Well, we do need to keep them here because we are really the greatest state in the nation, so we need to be able to enjoy that.
Hallelujah.
Exactly. See, now, and you're right. I mean, it is encouraging that they do that, and that's another whole other aspect to this that we haven't even discussed. The children now, I mean, we can talk about the education and the college prep readiness, but how many of these kids could be excited of the fact that they could work in aviation, they could work with some of these companies right here at home, make a really good living out of this, and have a great resume with some of the stuff that they can come out of high school, out of college with, and be able to work right here at home.
These technologies are just so cool. These carbon fiber technologies, they've been building the 737 here for 50 years. These newer ones, the 767, building that here, that's a 50-year commitment to our community. And, we need great people, and we've got them. And we're going to make sure that, they see their future here. We're going to really work on this stuff.
That's what it's all about. Spirit AeroSystems sinking $1 billion into the state of Kansas and expanding here on the home front. Lieutenant Governor Jeff Coyler being there, representing and being able to make that big announcement yesterday here in the Wichita area. Lieutenant Governor, we love having you on the show. You got a friend here with us. We love being able to chat with you. Such exciting news, and I'm glad you were able to be down here for it.
Hey, we look forward to coming again.
Hey, always a great time there. Appreciate it. We'll get you back on the show again real soon, and Merry Christmas to you if we don't talk to you before then.
Merry Christmas to everybody. We love you guys.
Always a great time there. 46 minutes past the hour. Take one more break. Wrapping up the show today. We'll get your thoughts and calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Wrapping up the show today. It goes by way too fast. We could have another hour or two. Maybe we should pitch that idea. Nah, that's all right. 316-721-8255-72 on talk if you want to join in here. Thanks again to all the great guests. Lieutenant Governor Jeff Coyler. Thanks to Wink Hartman swinging by. Thanks to Mark Walters jumping on the last minute. If you missed that one during the discussion about national reciprocity and about the Fix-NICS bill that many people are trying to shun and trying to steer away from, it's not the best bill, obviously, but is it going to encourage us to not vote for the largest potential successful piece of legislation for the Second Amendment since, according to AWR Hawkins on Breitbart, the creation of the Second Amendment? It's going to be massive. So if you missed that, tune into the second hour on the podcast. We'll have that up shortly after the show. I do appreciate Lieutenant Governor Coyler coming on here. I know he's been busy, and they've been getting a lot of heat. It's the media never ceases to amaze me. I don't understand where they even come up with it. I think they sit in a room. They literally sit in a dark room sometimes, and they say, what kind of story can we create to make them look bad now? And it comes so easy to them because they nitpick. Did you hear the text that someone sent. Did you see that tweet that someone did? Oh my gosh, can you believe it? That's what we're up against. They don't care. They sit in their room and go out of their way to find ways to make people look bad. Here's the headline from different media sources floating around the state now. An awkward situation. Kansas seems to have two governors talking about how legislators are having such a problem deciding who to go to talk about administrative issues, and they don't know whether to go to Governor Brownback, whether to go to Lieutenant Governor Coyler. They don't know because everything's so up in the air. Here's one story from Sam Brownback remains the governor of Kansas, while he awaits U.S. Senate confirmation to take the ambassador post, but he has allowed fellow Republican Governor Coyler to make the major decision for the administrations, leading to an awkward situation in the running of the state. I don't know that that's really an awkward situation. If you go to one of them and say, yeah, you know what, I've handed that duty off, then you go to the other person. It's really not that big of a complication, unless people are just want to throw a temper tantrum, throw a little fit. I can't believe that we have to do this. Look, Governor Brownback, it's not his fault that he has not been nominated yet and appointed officially to the ambassador at large for religious liberties. He's doing what he can do. He's waiting for the Senate, which are dragging their feet. And as you know, he's not been the only one that they've dragged their feet on to vote on. It's been nearly 40 of President Trump's different picks. So he's just waiting in limbo. But until then, why not give the guy behind you that's going to take the role and take the seat when you leave a little bit of those administrative rules so it's easier to do the transition afterwards? But the media, panic mode. I can't believe it. We have two people running it. We don't know who to go to, and it's really, really difficult because then we have to pick up the phone twice. Terrible ordeal. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? 721-825-5721 Talk. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. It's Pam.
Pam, how are you today?
Oh, pretty cold.
It's a cold one today. I don't know if I like this.
It turned winter all of a sudden.
See, and I was hoping that wouldn't happen until like April when it started getting warm for spring.
I know. I could have done that.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know. My husband would have not liked not hunting until spring.
Well, that is true, and the cooler weather does make the hunting better.
Yes.
That it does.
This makes it easier.
That's what you do. What's on your mind today?
Well, I hope that the American people aren't as stupid as the press think we are, or the people of Kansas. People run for, what about all these senators that are always running for president? And you can't tell me they have time to do their Senate duties while running for another office.
Or they're running for re-election of their own seat, and they're spending half the time out campaigning and going to meetings and doing benefit dinners. You're right. How many votes do they miss because they're out campaigning and doing their thing? And
that's why we never get anything done, because they're always campaigning.
It's always about the next election to start the next one. You're right. So
all they have time to do is spend.
I just have to chuckle. Like, I don't even see this as a story. How is it that a couple of legislators got frustrated because they had to pick up the phone twice because they didn't know which side to call, whether it was Sam Brownback or Jeff Coyler, and who we call. This is the level we've sunk for the media, and it's pathetic.
Just pathetic. Oh, I'm telling you, Andy. But I'm excited about this reciprocity thing. It's too bad this other junk got tacked on, but
it is unfortunate. But still, I mean, I think it as a half a step back and 4 steps forward when it comes to this bill, even with everything included into it. That's why the ones that are like, I don't really support it because of this Fix-NICS Act. When you put, and for any other legislation, when you put a law on top of a law to make the first law more efficient, it just creates more of a spider web of inefficiency, and it doesn't work in the first place anyways. It didn't work before. It's not going to work now. It's not that big of a loss, in my opinion, because that's the way politics is done. But if that's what it takes for it to go through the Senate, which is going to be a tough vote, if that's what it takes for them to feel like they're doing something productive, then let them have their little thing, and we can pat them on the head and say congrats.
And it, I'm like Mark Walters. People need to really look at the NRA.
Mm-hmm.
They will compromise places where, like the Second Amendment Foundation and Gun Owners of America, and these folks will not.
Right.
So.
And you just got to be careful with it. I mean, sometimes they compromise a little too much. I did not like their statement about the bump stock after the shooting.
Didn't either.
But at the same time, then sometimes the compromise was, okay, we understand it because that's the only way to get their agenda across. So they are making more of a gain than they are a step back. So you got to be careful with it, as opposed to I mean, I agree with purist mentalities, but sometimes it just doesn't work. You're not going to get some of these Republicans in moderate states to support a hardline reciprocity bill with nothing else attached to it. They have to feel like they're getting something on their end as well.
But that's what was so weird. This thing was sailing through, even with everything that the press had been doing, you know. But it was so fun last night listening to Mark Walters trying to talk to someone and counting votes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he gets excited about that stuff. It was fun.
He was so great. He was
good.
so great. I loved it.
I love it.
Thank you, Andy.
Pam, always a pleasure. We appreciate you calling and love talking to you there. 721. Oh, I guess we're out of time. Never mind. Don't call today. Call tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a huge show. Corey Lewandowski is going to be with us. Ron Estes is going to be with us, Congressman Ron Estes. Jim DeMint in studio for the third hour. It's going to be huge. It's going to be bigly. It's going to be great. You're not going to want to miss it. President Trump's top 2 advisors joining the show with us. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is the Voice of Reason. Have a great day, everybody.